Good afternoon and good evening to everyone from wherever you're joining us. And welcome to our webinar series, Experts Speak, in association with IABAC, the International Association for Business Analytics Certification. And let us start today by giving you a brief introduction about the speaker for today, Mr. Carl Smith. Carl is the founder of social media platforms like Me Social and All Me, and he has over 25 years of experience helping global organizations transform the way they design, build, and deliver services, while also partnering with banks, governments, universities, and Fortune 500 companies to turn complexity into clarity. And today he'll be covering the topic on AI effectiveness and human eminence. And just a request to all the participants, please post your questions in the Q&A section, and we will present it to the speaker at the end of the presentation. Over to you, Carl.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction and thank you for the opportunity to share my musings or my experience. I do have a short presentation. I don't want to focus too heavily on the presentation because actually it's the ideas behind the images that are important rather than the images themselves. My background in AI goes back to around 2001. And realistically, if you know what AI is, it probably goes back to the first time I ever coded anything, which was back in the 1980s, looking at how we can augment human existence. And that's what I see computers doing rather than taking over from them. However, like everyone else on the planet, I am aware that there are some issues with how we're utilizing technologies and specifically AI, which is why I put this image together. So hopefully no one's having a heart attack about now. But there is this sense that AI is crushing humanity up against the business need for profit. And actually, it doesn't have to. There does need to be a rebalancing, I think, in how people operate, how they expect to work, and also what work should be. There's a great deal of work that's been carried over from the last century that frankly has never needed to be done by humans and should always have been done by machines. Just like we realized during COVID, we didn't need to go to shops, but we could buy everything online. Although someone like me had been banging on about using e-commerce for 20 years, no one actually listened until there was a situation where they couldn't go to a shop. Same way AI is dramatically changing a lot of entry-level work. And so instead of fighting that, we need to make sure that we give young people a different entry point than doing manual tasks and give them over to the skill sets that they really have as humans, which is innovation and invention. I just want to bear in mind what artificial intelligence actually is, because there's a lot of misleading information out there at the moment, just because everyone wants investors, and I get that that's a human drive to say what we're now doing is AI. But actually, there's a lot of systems that are currently being purported to be AI, which are not. So let's start at the beginning. Artificial intelligence is a field of creating systems that can perceive, reason, learn, and act with a degree of autonomy. They themselves can do that. Even at a finer level of the programming, they can respond through data matching or through pattern analysis and change what their actions are. If the system you're working on doesn't do that, it's not AI. It may well mimic AI, and there's a lot of that that's happened, and a lot of unfortunate people have been taken to the cleaners on investments for things that are not AI. Always go back to what does it do and what problem does it solve? And this is where I come into AI in my experience. I'm looking to solve actual problems, not find an AI and then look for a use for it, which is what I think a lot of the scrabbling around at the moment is focused on. I do want to go back to where AI comes from, and AI is not new. It's very, very old. It's older than I am, and I feel quite old. For the Star Wars fans, you'll know what the first sentence means. For everyone else, the key thing is AI is 75 years old, or well, 76 if you want to conclude this year is over, but at least 75 years old. It's very, very old as a thing. What has changed is access. And what we need to be aware of as engineers and as architects and as professionals working to solve problems is that there is now this sense that everything can be done by AI, and it can't. Just like in the past, everything can't be done by software. I really don't want to get my hair cut by a piece of software. I really don't want to be driven by a piece of software, and I can go into that later if people are interested. Given the recent announcements by Tesla where they're dumping their self-driving cars, when in fact other people have solved that problem because they looked at it a different way. So what are the AIs I'm talking about? So these are the main AIs, and there's a lot of them, and I probably missed some out. And for the engineers on the call, I did look at who was attending. There does seem to be quite a few engineers. I can't do what you do. I am not the at the coalface solutions person. I'm at the enterprise level. How does this interface with the vision of the organization? How does this fit the outcomes we're trying to achieve? How can we deliver the data systems necessary to underwrite these AIs? How will we conform to regulatory compliance and governance? That's where I sit in this model of delivering AI. So I won't be going into the actual functionality at a macro at a micro level of how these things actually work, because actually there's people on this call that probably know better than me. Never set yourself up for a fall. So I've called out a number of systems here as solutions. The first one is expert systems, machine learning, probabilistic and statistical AI. I always think of that as Bayesian networks. I can't stop myself because I've used Bayesian networks. Evolutionary and bio-inspired AI, fuzzy systems, or again, I tend to focus on the logic models. Hybrid AI, where you're intermixing a number of AIs, embodied and robotics AI, deep learning, which I'd love to get into. It fascinates me, but I've never had a client willing to pay for me to do to solve a problem with it. Natural language processing and large language models. Now, I've starred the ones that I've actually worked on or utilized. So if I can move this out of the way of my notes. My expert systems solution related to utilities management, and this was back in 2005. As I said, AI is very old. And the thing that we were trying to understand was how we could codify processes around utilities management and utilities troubleshooting. And what we did was we took a whole series of data around the problems and process solving that was done to fix water supply issues, electrical supply issues, and we codified them. And then we made them available to an expert system that could be responsive to new queries around problems and therefore offer solutions to engineers. Now, in some ways, it does dumb down engineers because they don't then need to know everything. This is field engineers, but at the same time, it also lifts a lot of people away from hidden knowledge and really does aid people. The machine learning piece that I worked on was actually to do with anti-money laundering in financial services, and actually was looking at pattern analysis. Although later I did actually do some training around IBM Watson's, which is an amazing IA system. Pattern analysis has been around for hundreds of years. We've always used it. And in this instance, we were dabbling with how can we track unusual trading actions within complex systems where you're dealing with essentially financial instruments. And we utilized an AI logic model for machine learning to resolve where these transactions were coming from, and also to look at trading platform activity to ensure that insider trading, and certainly offsetting risk was managed effectively, or hedging. So that was around 2006, 2008. Probabilistic and statistical AI was something to do with Bayesian networks I was involved with in 2015. It was with a company based in Australia who were looking to commercialize what had been until that point a decision engine around the Five Eyes program, which is a military intelligence system. And what this was looking at was how the system could draw data from other sources other than military systems to perhaps predict the likelihood of someone making a claim on insurance, or how they might be considered to be a good risk for a mortgage. And actually just looking at other ways. We did actually look at it also as a way to predict the next US president. And we did actually get that right as Trump. So it's a very interesting way of utilizing an AI. I do have diagrams of how that works if people are interested. Fuzzy systems, that was actually for a very well-known UK what's it called, property engine. And what they were looking at was the problem they had was that a lot of data was available on properties in the UK that were for sale that was conflicting, and it was very hard to work out if they were all the same property or not in a given area. And actually that was because estate agents were specifically hiding certain data points. And what we did was we utilized a fuzzy logic system to uniquely identify properties and then make them available for the estate agents to then be on that platform where they could actually say they can advertise it. Very interesting idea. That was 2008. Again, this is quite a while ago. Hybrid systems. I worked with expert systems and machine learning for a military fire control system back in 2018. And that was in Southeast Asia for a client that actually wanted to support the observation of military activity utilizing drones, which is all the main talking point these days in a lot of AI. But that was back in 2018. We should also be aware that fire control has been automated for a long time with things like CWIS in battleships. But there's always been a human intervention point with that control, at least until you get within a certain distance of a battleship. Natural language processing, that was actually based on a case study I saw by someone else. I saw a case study in 2006 of the Verizon natural language processing system that they were using to respond to support requests. And off the back of that, I used that for a European telco company as a solution to their problem of dealing with millions of requests for support. And the last one was actually quite recent. Also, that the Verizon 2006, the LMM thing, which is what everyone's really going on about these days. I was asked to investigate them as a viable and traceable way to do biomedical science documentation in terms of clinical reporting, and that was 2024. Again, looking at how we should structure the systems in order to make sure that the LLM is not fabricating information, but is providing a filter to focus the deliverables. That's where I came across the notion of a narrow language model, which would actually be used as a treasury index if you're going to use the thoughts around information management, or as a core index in creating reports, which is where I think a lot of the large consultancies have gone wrong. So they haven't really investigated the technology in such a way to understand how they can best deliver value to clients. Now, so that was rather long-winded. I'll try and speed up if possible. because I want to open up to questions, which I'm completely fine with having questions asked of me. I may not have the answers, and I'm completely realistic in that. The next slide is about why are we different? What makes us eminent? So we have kinds of intelligence that AI doesn't have. And this is really important because if we don't recognize what we have, we will give ourselves over to machines that will cease to recognize us as being part of the equation. The current thinking around all of this is that these systems will increase profit and they will drive out waste, which is a good intention. However, underlying that is always the sense that in fact, they will drive out humans. And since many of these systems are designed to deliver value to humans at the end point, we have to be concerned about it. Now, if you're a machine-to-machine delivery system managing machines for machines' own benefits, all of this is irrelevant, and there is no human eminence except in the architecture. But the key thing is going into these points is, consciousness of subjective experience. Humans have a true awareness of what we need, and it's AI doesn't have a knowledge of experience. It has past transactions. It has a transaction capability and a future transactions, but it doesn't have a relevance or a cross index to understand the meaning as they relate to humans. We have meaning, intentionality, and meaning. We have, and I'm not going to read all the slides out because I put them up there for the purpose that you could read them. And I will make the slide pack available. I'm not going to be controlling over it. The point here is that machines don't understand human world. Why should they? It's not their world. They don't have moral judgments. The Isaac Asimov laws of three laws don't exist in reality. No one has applied the three laws to any of the systems. Critical systems that could cause death have a human injunction point that requires a decision before a machine can proceed. I think we're moving forward now with military equipment that could actually bypass that, which is a bit of a concern. And the whole nature of machines are that they don't really understand creativity. They don't create anything. They repackage and they draw images from some places that they probably shouldn't have. So that's kind of an idea around the human elements. But the key points are that humans need to be involved in this discussion around our world, how it works, and what is acceptable within it. Because if we are not, it won't be acceptable, and we're going to be pushed out of it. As solutions people, as people delivering solutions into organizations, we have to think about how we are reorganizing them to function, how they will function better, but also what intrinsically is made of the humans that are in that and what is machine. And by having that understanding, we can actually elevate the unique thinkers. We can elevate the people that understand the end-to-end ecosystem. Machines don't understand it, they operate it. And that's really important thing. And machines are not infinitely adaptable. They will adapt within their programming. Humans have the capacity to draw knowledge from multiple different areas, to understand that knowledge and to implement that knowledge into working practices and behaviors that actually make profit in a way that machines still can't. I'm not saying it will never get there, but we are a long way from it at the moment. So AI can replicate a lot of human outputs, but it doesn't possess the underlying subjective, intentional, and value-forming capacities that characterize human minds. It just doesn't exist yet. Are people trying to make it? Probably. I mean, I expect there are a number of mad scientists out there trying to do this. You have to wonder why. Certainly there is the sense that some people never want to die and they want to propagate their minds into machines. I feel like I'm in an episode of Lawnmower Man, but still, it doesn't at the moment, and we need to make some decisions around where humans should fit in the future world. And at the moment, no one seems to be really dealing with these issues. And then last, the role of AI is to recommend, prioritize, predict, and optimize. We must maintain the final authority. I saw something this week on LinkedIn that someone had posted an IBM statement from the 60s that you can't sue an AI. And I think that's an essential point. So that's as much as I'm going to share. I'm happy to respond to questions. I don't know, Ram, if you want to manage the questions or not.
Yeah, Carl. We'll try and see, if we can pick up some questions. Maybe we, uh, yeah, we have one question from Lezan saying, as AI is increasingly driving e-commerce decisions such as pricing and personalization, what guardrails should be in place to ensure transparency, fairness, and human accountability? A fair question.
Lots. I mean, that's a big question. Um, all retail commerce works on an arbitrage system whereby awareness of price and availability describes whether or not you can gain that product or service at a decent rate. Um, in terms of privacy and being able to understand the underlying determinants between around that system, I don't think anyone's come up with a framework for doing that yet. Um, and I'm not sure that they would know how to. I think that has to be a request from customers. Use systems that make you feel safe. Don't use systems that don't make you feel safe, is my guidance at the moment. But in terms of accountability, there isn't any. The EU is coming up with a framework to manage AI. There are murmurs in US about it, but at the moment, a lot of people are just using them without understanding. I mean, at the moment, we give away so much data without any understanding of where it goes and who has access to it that it's genuinely shocked. It's like going up to a complete random person in the street and giving away all your private data, which is essentially what we're doing. And until we can deal with the fundamentals of we own our own data and there is a right to ownership and a right to deleting data um, across the world, we will still be subject to the technology systems. Did I answer the question or did I answer a different one?
Yeah. It's a fair assessment of what the question was talking about. Uh, yeah, but to our audience who are actually out there trying to see if they want to make a career out of AI. Oh, we have a follow-up question as well. So from the same person? Oh no, okay. We have a new question. It's called, why is it important not to view AI as a human replacement, like in example in healthcare?
So this is about
Because you have
interfaces.
doctors, yeah, everybody's Googling, everybody's going and using AI assistants right now to look at healthcare issues to find out if they can self-medicate or and trying to just omit the human doctor aspect of it. So that's a
Yeah,
question.
so pure play diagnostics you can do by a machine. But actually, when you're bleeding on the floor, you don't want a machine looming over you and telling you you're bleeding on the floor. I think that there is a human interface that cannot be replaced by a machine. And I think this is the thing is if we accept that everything is going to be machine based, then that's what we get. If we refuse to accept it, then actually we don't. Oh, great, my front door's ringing. Now I should close my door. Right. So I think that train of thought lost. So we must choose what we will accept. There is no way that we can force people not to develop systems that remove humans. But what you can do is not utilize them. But the fundamental thing is that being a human is an interface. It's an interface with other humans. The mind that we have is unique to ourselves and our experiences, and that drives our behaviors and our ability to respond to each other. The language we speak, the nuances of our cultures, these are all unique components that machines simply cannot map yet. Um, and certainly in healthcare, I really would prefer to be spoken to by a human that might understand my pain than a machine that won't. I don't know if that answered the question or not.
Yeah, yeah. It was actually more or less like, what the guy was, talking about. Yeah, we have one more question. What role does explainable AI, which actually means like, usually the people consider the logic of, the decision making of AI as part of some kind of a black box where we don't know why it chose, what it chose as an answer. But explainable AI is like, a concept where you can actually really explain what's the logic behind the output of the AI model. So the person who's asking is asking what role does explainable AI models play in enhancing human trust and collaboration?
So we're talking about how do we break down the barriers between trusting the information we get from machines against people. I think the explainable AI is actually a great concept. Um, it's getting people to get beyond their own existing bias. I think we all have bias
Yeah.
towards certain groups of people. Um, Either who are like us or from the same social background as ourselves, or from the same religion or the same language. All of those things seem to be built into human society. And getting beyond those things with each other is hard enough. With machines where people don't explain how they work or who they're accountable to, it's almost impossible. So I think the concept of explainable AI is really good if it can show accountability. Because as with machines, humans also seek who are you accountable to? Who's your boss? Who do I relate a problem to? If not you, then someone above you. And I think without that, like the first question, in fact, or the previous question, how do we show transparency? Well, we need to show accountability because that allows us to understand its relationship to us.
Yeah, we have it looks more like a statement there rather than a question. We have Ruben Bryant basically saying AI can't by itself eliminate corruption, but when used correctly, it can significantly reduce opportunities for corruption and increase transparency and empower citizens. Like in Liberia, the impact depends on how AI is applied. So,
So
yeah,
So I actually wrote something recently about how AI has been applied to create bubbles of information where people will agree with you. And I think that the issue is who wrote the terms of reference within the AI. You can reduce corruption with AI. Absolutely, you can. However, if the AI has been deployed by a corrupt organization that seeks to hide its own activities, it won't help you. And I think this is the underlying thing. Where does it get its information from, and who determines what is a priority? What is weighted as a good answer? I have a constant struggle with AIs where I ask them questions I know the answers to, and they give me the wrong answer. They give me the wrong answer because they've been programmed to weight a certain answer as a higher priority than I know the truth to be. And so I ask the same question again with some reference points, and they always say, "Oh, that's a good point." And I'm thinking, it's not a good point, it's the truth. And so I think that we need to be. I tend to treat AI responses very much like I treat Wikipedia. Wikipedia can be edited by anyone and therefore could come up with the most amazing garbage, and so can AI. Um, can it eliminate corruption? Yes. Will it? Probably not. And probably not because it can't, but because the people who are corrupt are the people who are making the systems available. So that's a terrible answer for democracy, but I happen to be a
Uh,
realist.
I could get what we were trying to say. We have Jerry Thomas Matthew. Uh, what's the governance on AI outcomes, and is there an adherence or regulation compliance required? I would add something from my side as well on from what Jerry is asking. The NIST framework, NIST frameworks in Europe, which is
Hmm.
actually trying to create compliance and regulate. Do you think those kind of frameworks, do they make the progress of AI more rigid, or will it make it more like more flexible, like to implement, like, because if the more regulations you bring in, there is a what do you say, a habit of like trying to ask software companies to pay big amounts of like money, cough up like a lot of thing, like Facebook had to pay so much of money to Europe for the compliance issues and all the stuff. Will that hinder
Yeah.
compliance?
I mean that's the regulation cost, isn't it? So um, regulation and governance of themselves are normal. We all sit under them. I'm not allowed to go next door and murder my neighbor. That's a given because there's a law that says I can't. That's a regulation and compliance regime. In terms of governance of AI outcomes, that's about defining them at governance, not at AI. So when the AI comes up with an outcome that doesn't fit the governance model, it's discounted. I think there's two major questions here. One is about what are we trying to achieve? What problem are we trying to solve that AI is the answer? And the second one is regulation and compliance a burden or an opportunity? Now, most people view regulation and compliance as a burden, but I view it as an opportunity because it sets the outer parameters of what we will accept as a way to work and a way to utilize things. Again, with the neighbor next door, who I happen to really like. Um, uh, I work with them on the basis of human to human interaction. I can discuss things with them and we can sort things out. I don't have to reach for a hammer the minute there's a problem. So I think there is an understanding of the parameters that are set by regulation that allows us to operate. And once we have a common set of parameters to operate across uh, all areas of the world, and I think this is still the problem, is it's too fragmented. You can build a system in the US that is completely acceptable to the US's extraordinarily lax rules around data systems, apart from in California, um, but that would no way be acceptable in Europe, and yet that's seen as a barrier. Europe's putting up a barrier. Actually, what Europe is doing is trying to protect its citizens from the wholesale stealing of their data. And I think that this is, again, what are we trying to utilize AI for? Is it just to capture everyone's data, or are we trying to deliver products and services through it that are compliant to how people live and work? I don't think I really answered Jerry's question
No,
because
you
I think
did. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
That's one of the.
governance is a much more complex one, than we could probably spend about 3 hours talking about governance of AI, and we'd need to look at a case by case basis of what are the outcomes we're trying to achieve. Um, and governance can build for AI. There's no inflexibility in governance except in how it's managed. The concept of governance is entirely designed to be adaptive to policies, which is how it all works. So.
We have Mazindu asking, like, how best will AI solve the data privacy and security issues?
So AI is a generalist term again. I think the point is what goes in and how does it come out. Um, at the moment, there was that classic one of the Finnish software development team that put their whole code base into a large language model and realized too late that they'd actually fired all of themselves from their company because they just shared proprietary information in an open system. Now, if we want to manage personal data, we need to make sure that the system is a closed system. So when I talk to clients about utilizing AI, I say, can you put it on your server? And they're always going, well, it's in the cloud. I'm going, well, that's nice. In the cloud means you have no control over where the data goes. If you want to use um, AI in healthcare, for instance, then it should be on a internal server that has no external ports so that the data cannot leave the system. What it does then is it learns from itself and it doesn't draw live data from outside or push data into the outside. There are ways that you can augment an AI with, again, as I said before, subject matter expert information, which would be doctors or whatever. But you can't rely upon the current systems. Most people don't even know how to set up a large language model. They're currently using them in major corporations and pushing all of their private data straight out into the cloud. Again, this goes back to the solution. How are you building your AI? It's not just about privacy. It's about how did you build the underlying structure of it, and did you allow for everything to be shared live online outside your organization?
Yeah, we have Sudarshan asking, like, what are the risks when the majority of decision making becomes AI driven? I would have a caveat like, if at all AI can be used for example, in the judiciary, where you have a huge backlog of cases being run in the judiciary, where like, the case has gone for eons. And somewhere we could say like, based on how the precedent has been set by a previous case similar to what is being taken up right now, and use AI to at least reduce the number of, the time taken to, make decisions. But is that a
So,
risk to it?
so AI works in absolutes, law works in liquidity, in a liquid function, and I'll explain that. So even British law is not static. That's why we have barristers who walk up and down the Royal Courts of Justice to describe, to have a conversation around what the law actually means. So the meaning of the law is not explicit, well, not in every circumstance, whereas AI tends to work in explicit senses. So the we can't have any decisions made by AI, certainly not around the law, certainly not around health. What they can do is triage in health. They can help someone make a decision, but they shouldn't make the decision for them. In terms of backlogs of legal situations, there are always expediencies and rationales behind legal situations. And to simply say it's someone's first offence, they were caught stealing, we accept that they were caught stealing and that they should be given a 1 month prison sentence is insane because they may not have been caught stealing, they could have been incorrectly identified. And the minute you make decisions like that using an AI, someone has to be held accountable. Who is it? Is it the company that built the AI or is it the person that uses the AI? And in that scenario where the person's not guilty, who do they sue? And I just don't think that our world is set up to allow AIs to make decisions. Now, will they make decisions, or will companies want them to make decisions? Absolutely, because they want to reduce cost. They want to drive down cost and increase profit. Certainly in the case of judiciary, it all costs a lot of money to have any sense of law in any country that is not totally corrupt. That all costs a lot of money, but I think it's a cost worth paying. What AI can do in legal systems, however, is work out what case law is. It can pull together all the case law, and I have worked with a major UK legal company that were looking at AI to drive the whole process around gathering case law for individual cases. And that makes complete sense. And that does reduce the overhead and cost of putting together the case law. Think in commercial sense or even in private senses. In a commercial sense, you could reduce a bill from $200,000 to $10,000 by pressing a button. Now that is completely possible. Still, you would need to get a person to read it all to validate that it was the right case law. And this is the part that AI can't do. It can't understand context of those laws. It understands the absolute point in time, but it doesn't understand why something is illegal and something isn't. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, more or less. Like we have Elvis asking, it's a big question actually. He's asking, is it necessary for human beings to continue gathering information, breaking barriers, when AI can do the same in matter of seconds? Is it still necessary for humans to acquire as much knowledge across all areas of life when we have trained AI to the level that surpasses human imagination?
Yes, is my simple answer is yes. So AI is essentially still dumb. It doesn't really create ideas. The way human mind works is we create an active narrative in our mind of all the things we've learned, and we cross-pollinate ideas from lots of different areas. Unless you're talking about like a one massive AI that knows everything, that might have the capacity to reduce the amount that we need to consume and absorb. But if you, as it's currently working as sporadic outbreaks of AI across commercial organizations, even the stuff that Google's doing, while fascinating, is not creating true invention, and it's still a human trait. That's essentially where we fit in. Um, and for machine to machine, I can't see why a machine can't make those determinations, but I would still want to have a human lock to check that actually it's not the right, it's not the wrong determinations. So yes, it's really up to individual humans. I know that AI is going to dumb down the population worldwide because people will go, oh, I don't need to learn. Um, and the people who do need to learn, who do want to learn, will end up running the planet. Because there'll be a lot of dumb people who don't know anything who could be easily manipulated. So it's up to individuals. If they don't want to understand the complexity around human life and human existence and what we need to operate, that's fine. Don't. But the people who want to will end up running everything. Does that
I have,
help?
yeah, 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 we're getting there. No, I have one from my side, Carl. Like
Yeah.
how much of whatever is called AI right now, not the same as the old adage of saying like, computing as garbage in and garbage out. Because I can give you an example of it. A couple of years back, like, Gemini actually was trained, the model was trained with the data, whatever Google gathered, and it included the inherent bias also of what
Mhm.
the kind of information was being gathered to train the models. Like when the question was asked a couple of years on Gemini to show us a picture of what the founding fathers of America would look like, it showed a bunch of people who had colored people. It's totally false.
Yeah.
Like, and that showed the inherent bias of the kind of people who actually trained that model. So that way it's garbage in and garbage out. It was trained with garbage and it came out with garbage.
I think that the thing is it starts off like a child does with basic knowledge, which is then influenced by interaction. So human children are influenced by their parents and by their siblings. and by their wider family, and then by their social environment, and then by their school, and then by we have multiple influences, just like AI is. Now, if your AI is told that the cultural significant points are actually not culturally significant and are not static, then it will try and reinterpret them based around whatever it's heard recently. I just always go back to the initial sort of AIs that lasted 3 days before coming out as Nazi misogynists, and I think that's interesting because if you look at certain forums online, it's not a surprise. So it's I think we just need to be careful about again, treat the current AIs like 4-year-olds. They have lots of knowledge, they have access to lots of knowledge, but they can't tie it together in a decent conversation that makes sense all the time. And sometimes it does look really, really good, but those are the ones I read even harder to make sure that there's not something in there that is really quite horrendous that's hidden from sight otherwise.
So it'll take us a long time to start treating it like a PhD grad. So you just have to treat it like a child, small child till right now.
I think so. I mean, the intent is better. I still think that we are missing a whole load of rule systems that we as humans should be applying across the board to anyone that wants to launch something out onto the internet that's made available to everyone, where it's assumed to be true. Um, and we all know that truth actually doesn't exist in that solid format because I'll give you an example. When I was at school, my history teacher was from Malta, and he taught us the Second World War from the Maltese perspective. And I tell you, it's very different than from the English perspective, as it is different from the Algerian perspective, as it is from the French perspective. And that perspective knowledge really defines what a truth is to us, but it's not a truth to everyone. There is very little universal truth. And that's a concern where we give AI access to information and assume it's going to respond with a universal truth that actually doesn't exist.
Yeah, but the example I gave you was like, it was the Gemini was asked like to show a picture of the founders of USA, and there is a universal truth to there was not colored people there, but then it showed colored people. So that is based on the kind of biased, people are coming waking up to it. Like, if you want to,
No, I would say that someone spent a couple of weeks putting in queries into Gemini saying, weren't all the founding fathers of America black? Because you can actually change the outcomes in these LMMs. It's fascinating because I do it all the time. I ask questions and then I ask them over and over again until I get them to answer the right question.
okay.
So
Yeah,
you can change them.
okay. Fair enough. Uh, we have Lezan. We'll take a couple of more questions before we wind up, Carl. It's
Okay.
been brilliant, actually. We have so much of audience interaction asking for so many questions. We'll try to see how much we can fit in. Yeah,
If people want to, if you want another session, I mean, I'm not the total solution person for AI. There's lots of other people that know about AI as well. I'm just talking from my experiences.
that's great, man. Seriously. So Lezan is asking, how safe is it to implement AI-driven self-healing capabilities in your testing process? In terms of test automation, can you get that?
So if you can get an SKD version of the AI, it's very safe. If you can't, it's very unsafe because you're going to be sharing code with the internet.
Okay.
Because that's what happened at the guys in Finland. They literally shared their entire code base for a new mobile phone
Mhm.
with an LMM to test it, and they basically gave away their code base.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, we'll
they
try
all
and
got
see.
fired.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll try to see if we can squeeze in one more. Uh, we have Jamal Sheikh Omar asking, how can AI support teachers, students, and public servants in daily work? I think we already are there with generative AI. So, yeah.
So I think that the key thing here is to find the data sources that are relevant. if a student is interested in physics, you don't send them immediately to nuclear physics. You send them to the physics that will allow them to build the fundamental building blocks of knowledge to understand the concepts. Then you send them to wider levels. And I think that's the essential point is AI is currently unfettered in terms of access. However, you can actually set up AIs to draw data from the right content. And certainly in terms of teaching, you can give an AI access to the full curriculum of outcomes and ask it to tell you what sources they would need in order to to give students the opportunity to learn and understand how those concepts work, because that's what teaching is about. You're not giving people total facts. You're giving them the capacity to understand the current set of understandings so that they can take it forward and be the next version of humanity. In terms of public servants, they work with a very structured set of rules around policy. And again, you can give them access to that. You might also want to give them access to sentiment because public policy is not always loved. And therefore, they might want to understand the context that they're working within. Again, that would be how you deliver that AI. So that would be the user interface part of it. So you would look at what is the policy, what is the current sentiment in my locale, my district, and my country to that policy. And that would help them understand how to respond to it and how to deliver it.
Okay, one last question, and it could be the most interesting one. We have Lezan asking, like, what's your take on Elon Musk's prediction that all jobs will be optional in the future? When he says that AI will handle everything for us and humanity will have to work out what to do with its time and energy. And the question won't be of lacking goods and services, the question will be one of meaning. He said, adding that if computer and robots can do everything better for you, then what's your meaning of your life? Like something on those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's considering Elon is still trying to explain away why his cars can't drive themselves. I'm not really interested in his predictions. This is a Brave New World question, which has been going back to the 1960s. What happens when there are machines that can do everything for us? Do we find ways to make ourselves better, like learning new things, or do we become more artistic, or do we become like the humans on the uh, Disney film where they were all pushed around by carts because they were so huge that they couldn't walk? I don't know. I think we need to make some decisions about what we want to be as humans, and actually then impose them through boycotting systems that we don't like, that we feel are going to take away our rights to exist and to have families and to have fun. I think that's coming down to a much more fundamental question about humanity. What does it mean to be human? Will it mean? I asked a question a while about what's the difference between humans and AI, and no one answered it. And I said, well, the difference is love. We have an unquantifiable capacity for goodness and evil in the same in the same word, and it can drive us to do great and extraordinary things, or it can drive us to do nothing. But if we are doing nothing and AI and machines are doing everything, what do we do with ourselves? I don't think humanity is built to cope with that. I think we would continue to strive. We would probably go to the stars. We would expand humanity across the universe. I don't think that machines can really ever solve every problem we have. Um, Certainly, no machine can solve all the problems I have. And actually, I wouldn't want them to, because part of being human is actually resolving problems that we create and problems that we're within.
Brilliant, Carl. Seriously, it's been like a wonderful thing catching up with you, and it's been one of the most engaging sessions we have had on our platform. And To all our audience, like, we'll put up Carl's LinkedIn profile and you can connect with him directly. And thank you so
And
much for your
just to say, I'm an open networker. So if you want to connect with me, I will connect. Don't just follow me, connect, because I believe digital life is a conversation, not an announcement system.
Brilliant. And thank you so much for taking time out. And then to all our audience, like, please visit iabac.org, and we'll keep you all posted on all our upcoming events by email and across all our social media channels. And we look forward to catching up with you again all soon. Yeah. Thank you so much, Carl, and have a nice one.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.